Hello and welcome back to our Million Part Bible series. We're going through Matthew right now. We've been going through Matthew for months. The last one that we did was actually about a month ago. We've been very busy. I have a baby coming in a few months. We had crazy stuff going on at my company. I run my marketing company, and there is a lot of jumbling around and a lot of changes, and it's all going to be for the best. Now, last time we spoke, we were in Matthew 6, which focuses on the way that Christians give. Jesus is contrasting what he's asking by saying that during that time, it was a spectacle. If you were giving enough money, people are going to be blowing horns. They follow you all the way to the handoff spot. You get all this attention. In a lot of ways, you're buying attention more than you're trying to help people. I think when we look at some churches and synagogues to this day, we're still seeing that exact behavior. For the Christians in there, they ought to be checking this a little bit more. And now, continuing this theme of how Christians should behave in chapter 6, we go from giving to how do you pray. And very much like what Jesus talks about with giving, praying should also not be about getting attention, not showing your fellow man that how holy you are. And that's basically the theme of chapter 6, is saying these things, the giving, the prayer, we'll get to some more examples, should be about your relationship with no one but God. Not anything to do with man. If you are doing it for men, you'll get your rewards right here on earth, and you're not going to get them there. In both giving and prayer, God knows what's actually going on in your mind. You cannot hide that. You could hide it from your neighbors, but you're not going to be able to hide it from God. And that's the major theme here, that you need to be focused on your relationship with God, not anything to do with how you're showing everybody else how great you are. So, Matthew 6, 5, verse 5 through 13, will talk about how followers of Christ should pray. And this one might annoy you. Honestly, it's might be the most controversial one because so many churches do the exact opposite of this. So before hyping it up anymore, this is probably the most famous part of maybe even the entire Bible, especially if we get to after verse 9. But I'll go in verse 5. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows when you need before you ask him. And then we get into 9. This then is how you should pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Now, once again, Jesus is contrasting the existing practices with what he says is the ideal and appropriate. Now, this one might seem, as I said, to make some people mad because many denominations don't seem to have read this close enough. So, like gift giving, the major variable is whether you're doing it for men and God. In the case of prayer, have you ever seen anybody who wanted to be a little louder than everybody else, who never missed an opportunity to really show you how virtuous they are in public? That's kind of what we mean here. And meaningless repetition perhaps is the most insulting to Catholics. When you hear, oh, if you want to be forgiven, you have to do 25 Hail Marys, this or that. That's pretty much what this is against here. And we just went through the Our Father prayer. This is done all the time in churches where the entire congregation will sit and they will do that. And when you actually read the text, it's saying to do exactly the opposite of these meaningless repetitions. The Greek word here is the same as stammering or babbling like a child. When you repeat prayers endlessly, these scripted prayers over and over again, Jesus is saying that that is what God hears. No, 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 no. And it means absolutely nothing. Jews have been the only ones that have received the word of God at this point. So only the Jewish people had a relationship with the true God at this point. So when they're talking about pagans in this quote, they just mean non-believers. So everybody who was a different religion at this point was a non-believer of the true God, unless you were Jewish. So when you hear them say anything about Gentiles, that just means everybody who's not Jews, because at this point only the Jews were the ones that were true believers. They actually had a connection with the true God. A lot of religious people do these religious repetitions, even Christians, all the time. So if you have this connection with God, that you have this ear of the most powerful thing in the entire universe, the creator of everything, and you're going to try to impress him with quantity, not quality, as if God stands judgment of you and says, well, they should have done it 55 times. I don't care whether or not they really mean it or anything like that, but they said it so many more times. It's really strange, and I think it's because these ways of prayer are sacrifice. It's not fun to repeat something for hours, as you do in some of these situations. You finish and you just suffered quite a bit, and you think it must be worth it. It must be worth something. I said it 10,000 times. It's got to be worth something. But no human power can impress God in any way. In truth, this is your chance to communicate with the highest power, and you're trampling that by repeating the same thing over and over again. Historically, like David or Nehemiah in the Old Testament, when they prayed, they didn't just repeat something. They had famous off the cuff prayers. They didn't just repeat something that was written, they spoke from their heart. And that's a perfect example of how you should be interacting with God. And the biggest sin here is that the Pharisee movement destroyed that. It was all about repetition in all different circumstances and specific holidays. This would be how Jews prayed. And to this day, if you go and you talk to a Jewish person, this is how they pray. They don't pray. They don't just speak from the heart. They have scripted prayers that now God's been hearing for thousands and thousands of years, as if he's just pleased because they said the specific magic words. It does not make sense. But as we said, there are a lot of Christian homes too, a lot of churches where people are repeating the same prayers all the time. We do that in my church, even when we do the Our Father, our Father every single Sunday. And we study this word in our chapter 6, and then we go out there and we do the Our Father. Now, I don't mean to be pretentious, but when I'm sitting there, I try to use that moment to have my own prayer to God while it's going on. And I've heard some justifications for it, but to me, that's being true to myself and my interpretation of the Bible. Because Jesus provides that as a model of a way you should pray. Not to say, hey, just say this every single time. Not do it exactly like this, or you're a horrible person. And those are the exact words there. We to go back. This then in 9 is how you should pray. Not to repeat this over and over again, and then we hang it on walls and we say it every single time. He said, pray in this way, not verbatim. So in general, what they're saying is have your prayers be kingdom oriented. That's what lasts. You only have this temporary, fleeting life for so long. So, for all of your prayers to be, oh, I want more money tomorrow, I want this to happen, I want anything, it's somewhat missing the point. You should be praying for what is going to be happening in the kingdom, uh, and what actually comes out of your heart. It's the eyes for eternity type model. And you can pray for things, but don't make it everything. So it's interesting here when you do encounter a verse that contradicts your experience with what goes on and how Christians are behaving in our world. And maybe there are nice ways to say it to someone. You could point them to this text and say, "What do you think this means? Why are we going this route?" At the end of the day, though, that's between God and them. I think, as far as being somebody who promotes Christian interpretations, the only thing that you can do is put out what the text says and hope that it reaches more and more people. And the next few verses, especially, really are my favorite part. Really, what led me to Christianity, reading this area of Matthew, because it just seems so right. And we'll get into some more quotes. We see the Our Father, famous, but we're going to get into the swines before pigs, dogs. So many verses that are used all the time, even by non-Christians, that have become part of our lexicon forever. And in a lot of ways, people misinterpret these all the time, even Christians. So it's very, very fun to go through them, really break it down verse by verse, and see what we can really learn by reading the text instead of just relying on old assumptions and relying on what somebody told you when you were a child, because it's a lot deeper, a lot more beautiful when you actually look at the text. So remember, everybody, like, subscribe, comment, share, all those great things. The shorts are doing so amazing. I've been so pleased. I think we just got our first video at over 5,000. It's still going up. They're short little minute bites where we go through different interesting things throughout the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, and then we'll always be doing these verse by verse videos where we spend some significant time on each topic. Once again, thanks again for coming, bearing with me on this long absence. And I hope everybody has a terrific week. To our Jewish friends, happy Rosh Hashanah. My wife is Jewish. We have an interfaith family, so we're actually having our pastor come over this Wednesday to be able to share in the holidays. And very appreciative to have a church where he would come and have these kind of moments with me. Let's get more into that at a different time, because it is quite a topic. It ends up being discussed quite a bit between me and my wife, and I think it might be interesting for those who are also in interfaith relationships to kind of go through. But that's for another day. Thanks again. Take care, everybody. Bye.